What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to cover everything you need to know about the gods mechanic in set 17. This is pretty much the big set mechanic that is going to define how we're going to play, so we absolutely need to know what's going on. I do have a general tier list on how each of the gods are powered, but honestly, that's not important. What's important is knowing which god to pick, and we'll also cover when to pick each god and what comps they fit in and when they're going to be the best for you. So if you're new to set 17, pretty much in the middle of every stage, instead of having an item carousel that we used to have, you're instead going to be offered a choice from 2 different gods. Each of these gives you a little bit of a bonus and an item component, so you really have to choose carefully because what you pick determines an even bigger reward later in the game in stage 4-7. So there are 3 god choices, and if you pick 2 bonuses from one god, you get their boon. And that's pretty much going to decide how you're going to be playing around your win condition in the late game. But my most important piece of advice is to always pick the offering that most suits your game plan and incorporates your current board state in mind. For example, if you're win streaking, taking a low tier god but offers something that's very useful for your immediate board strength is pretty useful because you're trying to win streak. So that could be taking an extra item component that completes some items that you could build and use immediately. Maintaining this win streak is likely to be much more valuable than taking a higher tiered god because it fits your current game's game plan. Conversely, if you're looking to lose streak, gods that offer more delayed value or more flexible resources such as rerolls or gold to stack up interest are obviously going to fit your team much better. Lastly, most boons are pretty strong, so it's often better to just take offerings that synergize with your game plan as opposed to trying to pick the best boon, because in TFT, playing for the now often does mean a lot more than playing for the future, because a good setup in the early game always leads to a good setup in the late game. But now that we have some general tips out of the way, let's go into a deep dive into every single god. We're going to cover everything that they could possibly offer and when to take them. So first, let's cover Ekko. Ekko is the god of time, and his offerings provide a lot of delayed value, which makes him very useful when you're lose streaking. It sets up a period of time where you could kind of plan when you're going to spike and stabilize your board in the future. So if you are win streaking, probably want to consider not taking Ekko. Ekko's stage 4-7 boon is going to be one of the strongest in the game, as it provides a very well-statted item that can be used on pretty much any unit. But let's start with stage 2. You could be offered Scuttle Party, where your next PvE round will be replaced with a Scuttle Crab with bonus loot. You can get after 8 rounds, gain a random artifact, after 3 rounds, gain a forecast, after 4 rounds, gain a spatula, or gain Divine Intervention, where after you fall to 30 HP, you get a special loot orb, which can have things like a ton of gold, a bunch of 4 and 5 costs, a Thieves Glove, or some gold and a greater duplicator. Obviously, those are very powerful, but you do have to go down below 30 player HP, which can be a little risky. Now that we know what Ekko offers in stage 2, if you're trying to complete a 5-game win streak, consider taking a different god, because most of these are geared towards lose streaking. On average, the strongest option though in stage 2 is going to be Scuttle Party. Unfortunately, these are random, but pretty much like the value on Scuttle Party is just so much that you're pretty much hoping for this one every time. In stage 3, you're going to be offered 4 different things. Blessing Speed, which gives you a consumable that permanently increases a champion's attack speed by 20% and decreases their size by 20. This is a really good one if you are lose streaking in the very beginning and then you get here, you have the unit that you want getting this buff, and then you just drop the consumable on them and use them for the rest of the game. Another way this can be used is if you get like a 4-cost unit randomly early on, you can just use that as your main carry and use this buff on them too. Scuttle Party is also available on stage 3, very good here still. And then another one is after 4 rounds, gain 2 5-costs. And lastly, we have a Component Anvil. Again, Scuttle Party, probably one of the strongest ones here, but we don't get to pick and choose. So next up we have is stage 4. We have Blessing Speed again. We have an artifact item. We have after 5 rounds, gain a random artifact. There's getting a 5-cost shop in 3 rounds. You can gain 2 gold for each round for the rest of the game, or in 4 rounds, gain a completed item anvil. Pretty much all of Ekko's stage 4 rewards still have that delay factor in them, so do not take them if you are a low HP player. So unless the 4-7 boon really helps you out a lot, you pretty much have to pass on this one unless you are super high HP. I will note that the 2 gold a turn one is very strong if you are able to get away with it, because I don't think there's a single blessing that can match that type of gold generation. Lastly, Ekko's 4/7 boon is Gaining the Anomaly, which essentially is an item that grants a powerful evolution depending on their role, and you also get 2 magnetic removers. So again, boons get unlocked when you pick 2 of that god's offerings. This boon is one of the most flexible in the game and is best utilized on specialists, fighters, and tanks as it provides the most raw stat value into those units. So just to summarize, Ekko's pros is that he offers on average very high value for each of his offerings, and he also has a fantastic boon, and the cons are just the delayed value. Overall, I'm giving him around an A tier. The best comps to play this in might be something like Aurelion Sol. He's one of the best holders of the boon. Any special items work really well on any of the mech units, and the boon is best used on frontliners, specialists, and magic casters. Next up we have is Evelyn, which is the god of temptation. So Evelyn also offers above average loot, but it's going to be at a price. So same rule with Ekko, you want to prioritize her offerings when you have HP to spare or if you intend to use them to spike at that very moment. Her 4/7 boon is pretty risky, but it provides a great combat buff. It gives your team 10% durability, but you also lose an additional 1 HP whenever you lose a combat, so be careful with that one. So in stage 2, Evelyn offers you a couple of options. Gain a 2-star 2 cost, lose 1 player HP. Gain 9 gold for every other player that picks this, lose 2 player HP. Steamroll, gain a random 2 cost now and after each player combat until you lose 1. That one's super risky, but very fun. And lastly, gain a random 1-star 4 cost, lose 4 player HP. So in stage 2, these are actually very, very strong. Like getting a 4 cost in stage 2 often means you just win streak the whole time, especially if you get a good one. Good as in, of course, like whatever's meta is great, but if you have an item that matches up with them, there's pretty much no way you can lose in stage 2 at that point. But right now, Evelyn pretty much is like an insta-pick in stage 2 because the health loss doesn't really matter that much. But obviously, you should pick and choose based on whatever the other option is. Something like Blood Pact is really, really fun to do though, but obviously it does have some goofy moments where everyone picks it. So if you are committed to like a super loss streak strategy, it can be super, super risky. So you're gonna have to scout to see other players to see if they actually wanna take it too. Next up, we have is stage 3. We have gain a random emblem, lose 3 player HP, Blood Pact Plus, gain 11 gold for each player that picks this, lose 2 player HP. We have an upgraded version of Steamroll. We have gain a random 2-star 3 cost, lose 3 player HP, gain a random 3-star 1 cost, lose 3 HP, and then gain 15 gold, lose your shop for 2 rounds. So all these offerings are some of the highest gold values in the game. So that means if you are poor, it's very likely that you'll be clicking these if she's in your game. The random emblem is really good for lose streaking, as 3 HP as a price is very reasonable to pay for a potentially really high cap. Steamroll Plus is really good if you're playing 3 cost reroll, because this is a time where you're usually stabilizing with that comp and spiking at stage 3-5. Blood Pact Plus is a little bit risky if you're low HP, so if you're low, don't take this anymore. And then the gain 15 gold, lose your shops for 2 rounds. This one's is actually completely fine if you have an all-in strategy for level 7, because a boost in gold will likely allow you to level up really, really easily. Next up we have is stage 4. We have Blood Pact Plus Plus, which is the same thing as the ones before. Gain a random 2-star 4 cost, lose 3 player HP. Gain 18 gold, lose your shop for 2 rounds. Gain a random completed item, lose 5 player HP. And gain 2 random 1-star 5 costs, lose 1 player HP. So these are all pretty decent. Obviously, Blood Pact rule still exists. If you're low, don't take this. So Ekko and Evelyn are pretty similar in that sense for this stage. But again, her 4/7 boon is going to be gaining 10% durability, lose 1 player HP when you lose combat. And this is probably one of the best combat boons, especially in this set where there aren't too many frontliners. And obviously, it's absolutely incredible in melee carry comps. However, again, like if you're low, like don't take Evelyn, because if you do, you better win every single round. So some general tips for Evelyn is that you just have to pay attention to HP management. That's going to dictate whether you can take her or not. But pretty much the pros of Evelyn is that she's very good for tempo and often very high gold value, and the only con is that you need to be high life when you take her. The best comps for Evelyn, though, are going to be 4 cost lines that are reliant on 2 stars and spike very hard on stage 4 too. These can be comps such as like Mecha, LeBlanc Karma, Nami, Corki, and Riven. Very fun god to play around with, though. Overall, I'm going to put Evelyn in the A tier right now. She's just pretty solid. It just really depends on whether you could afford the HP hits when you take her. Next up we have is Kayle, who is the god of order. And Kayle gives items that help with consistency, but also has an inconsistent boon. So it's kind of that little balance there. But all of Kayle's offerings give extra components. Consider her if you're playing a comp that really wants best in slot items or to slam an item to maintain a win streak. So Kayle pretty much offers no econ, so she could be outplaced by gods who really accelerate the game. So that's one thing you do have to be careful of. But for all of stage 2, 3, and 4, you either get a random component or she gives you a specific component and you'll just know what it is. So you either need it or you don't. But her boon is going to be upgrade a random completed item to Radiant. This one's so risky. Like, I wish it didn't exist because it's either the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. You either waste your boon completely or you just have the best carry in the game. So I guess use this in comps that don't have too many items. The tricky part though is that when you take Kayle, you have more items naturally. So how are you ever going to be in a position where you don't have that many items? It's really goofy in that sense. But if you are a comp that likes Radiant items, that's going to be stuff like reroll comps. The Radiant item's going to be good for, but again, like Kayle doesn't really fit that well because she's really good in multi-carry comps because you're taking a lot of different item components. That means you'll have items to itemize like a couple of random legendaries that you have. Maybe if you're running like a 2 or 3 4-cost comps, that's where the extra items really shine. But again, you got to be careful because she doesn't really offer any econ and she also just has pretty much the riskiest boon in the game. But consider her in duo carry comps and comps that need best in slots and she's offering you one of those items. Or if you're playing a bunch of different 4-costs, such as like the Mecha Asol comp, LeBlanc Karma, or Kaisa Fizz. Right now, Kayle's in the A tier. It is a bit random, but I found that overall I've been getting the items I want, and it's quite rare that you get the absolute worst outcome. Like, I feel like even if you get a mediocre item upgraded, it's still very, very good compared to some of the other boons you can get. Next up we have is Thresh, the god of packs, and pretty much Thresh just offers a bunch of random stuff that is slightly higher value than average, making him a pretty good generic choice. You know how they have the augments that's like Silver Destiny, Gold Destiny? It's kind of like taking that, but with Thresh. So he gives you a mystery box, and he also gives you a random boon from other gods with some extra gold. But on stage 2, 3, and 4, you can either get mystery loot or a random boon. And just a note, I don't have the mystery loot's table data mined yet, but they're pretty much at least equal in value to every other offering. But I will be updating this on the website bunnymuffins.lol/gods when it is available. And you could also check out the full guide on this video there for reference during your games on maybe your phone, second monitor, whatever you want. But there is one other reward in stage 4, which is called Roll the Bones. You pretty much just roll 3 dice and gain gold equal to the total. And this is pretty solid if you need to rebuild your econ after rolling down on stage 4 too, so that you could get to something like level 9. Last up is his boon. Each round, roll a die, gain a bonus based on that roll. And this could roll econ, components, or some team-wide stats. It's pretty much only good if you're high HP and think you could get to later rounds because obviously you just get more rewards the longer the game goes. So if you're low life, unless you're like super, super strong, I would kind of avoid going for this one. But all in all, Thresh is a pretty safe pick. He works with pretty much every comp, and most of his picks are above average value, and it's also pretty fun. The only con that I would say he has is that his boon is very situational, and you pretty much have to try to be one of the players who are fighting for like first or second in order to get the most use out of it, because if not, you'll die before you get the rewards of it. Thresh's boon, I'm going to put in the C tier. He is generically safe, but I feel like not having him fit into your overall game plan, like that small risk, can be very devastating, even if his quote-unquote expected value might be a little higher. I think the best comparison we have here is former augments such as Silver, Gold, and Prismatic Destiny. Those were always very good value because you just click the augment and you get a random augment plus some gold. Augments are different from what the gods offer because augments happen at predetermined times. You don't know what you're going to get every time. Whereas a boon, you could kind of plan for from the very beginning of the game. So you know what I always say, a bad plan that's followed is always better than no plan at all. And that's kind of what's going on here with Thresh. Next up, we have is Varus, the god of love. Varus can enable some pretty powerful 3-star lines that offer a lot of tempo. His offerings are centered around duplicators, copies of units that you already own, and tailored shops that greatly accelerate the pace of the games. He also has a pretty strong combat boon, which gives your team 18 health for each total star level in your army. So in stage 2, Varus is going to give you either an own 3 cost and 2 gold. If you don't own a 3 cost, you get a random one. You can gain a 2 and 3 cost that share a trait. You could get 2 tiny duplicators, or in your next shop, you can have all 3 cost units. and the first one you buy is free. All of these options are pretty good for tempo. So if you have good items and you're just looking for a carry or something like that, you can take one of these and just roll with it. Next up, we have is stage 3, where he can either give you a 4-cost and a 3-cost unit that share a trait. Your next shop contains all 4-cost units. The first one you buy is free, or get a lesser duplicator and 3 gold. Duplicators are pretty great for tempo, and the 4-cost one can give you a lot of direction. And again, it's going to be a pretty good option to pick if you're going to be playing one of those multi 4-cost comps. Next up we have is stage 4. We have gain of 4 and 5 costs that share a trait, 1% increase 5 cost odds, gain an own 4 cost and 3 gold. If you don't have a 4 cost, get a random one. You could get a lesser duplicator and 5 gold, or 5 tiny duplicators and 1 lesser duplicator. So generally these are not that strong compared to other ones, but it's worth taking if you need to secure the boon. And the duplicators can enable 1 cost 3 stars if you are able to use them. Pretty much Varus's boon, you might think it's only good for reroll because you're looking for total star level, but if you're like super leveled, it also can be really useful because you just have more units on your team, which contribute to the star level. So a common misconception I've seen is that people think you could only use this in reroll, but you could also use this in like level 9 comps just because you have a lot of different units out there. Pretty much it gives you around like 240 to 300 HP team wide, but as long as you have around like 14 star levels, it's going to be good for you. That is going to be something like 6 2-stars at level 8. So some general tips, Varus is great for cheating out upgraded units earlier on with duplicators, like just use them right away if you need to. Tailoring shops is pretty good, and his boon is going to be pretty decent to play around with. The con with Varus is that he does not give you that much econ. I mean, I guess you could count the duplicator as like fake econ, because it does save you rolling time, but it does not give you gold in the early game to build interest with. Unless, of course, you sell the unit, which is probably not ideal because that's just going to be slightly below average value compared to what everyone else is getting. But Varus is going to be obviously best in reroll comps that benefit more from the duplicators, but for his boon, any comp can use it. It's pretty much universally strong at 14 or more star levels. Next up we have is Yasuo, which is the god of the abyss. And Yasuo is pretty interesting in that he's different from all the other gods we've covered so far, in that instead of giving you a bunch of loot or whatever, he instead gives you a powerful hex that offers different effects. These can provide a lot of tempo, some stats, and it scales pretty nicely too. Think of his power hexes as getting like a 4th item for your main carry or for your main tank. So in stage 2, you can get Cosmic Hex, which is place the hex on a champion. Allies in the hex gain 10% max health and 30 permanent health each round. And this is really, really strong in reroll comps or vertical comps that you want to keep units in, because pretty much you're going to be keeping that unit the whole game, whoever you buff up at the start. It's kind of like, I forgot the name of the augment, but the one where you have to reroll, and for every reroll you do, your team gains bonus health, or pretty much anything that stacks. This hex is just going to be that effect. But his other offerings, which are available in stage 2, 3, and 4, is the Solar Hex, which gives allies in the hex 18% bonus magic damage over 5 seconds, and you also get burn over the duration. This is really good with units like Nami and Aurelion Sol, who deal a lot of AoE damage. Cryogenic Hex, this one, the first time an ally in the hex falls below 40% health, they freeze for 1 second and heal 35% of their max health. Units do not drop aggro when they freeze, but it's really good on tanks. So that makes putting units such as the mech on this hex absolutely unkillable, as he'll heal from both his casts and the cryogenic hex proc during the freeze. And whenever you're concentrating a lot of power into one unit, that's where Yasuo really shines. Other example, and this goes for like pretty much all the hexes, is like 3-star 3 costs, absolutely disgusting with these hexes. Pretty much everything that likes the Radiant items are gonna be liking these hexes. Starlight Hex, allies in the hex gain 3 mana regen, very strong combat buff for a caster, especially conduits. Acceleration Hex, allies in the hex gain 30% attack speed. This is just pretty strong generic power that can help maintain a win streak and scales pretty decently later on. And lastly, we have Storm Hex, which is the first time an ally in the hex hits an enemy with an ability, that enemy is stunned for 2 seconds. This is pretty annoying to deal with, especially on something like Aurelion Sol, and it's a really good condition to play certain comps like Mecha. But right now, I think the Hex tier list is going to be Cryogenic and Starlight in S tier, A tier, Acceleration, Solar, and Storm, and then in the B tier, Cosmic. I mean, this tier list is pretty straightforward. The ones that just give you stats that you need, like those are going to be really good, right? If you need attack speed on your carry, why would you not take Acceleration, right? But Yasuo's boon is just increasing the power of his hexes by 50%. And if you only have 2 hexes, you also gain 12 gold. But buffing these hexes just make it even better than they were before, and it just super enables a lot of hyper carries. So even if you only took 2 hexes, this boon is still worth considering, but I prefer it with 3. Like the mana hex goes from 3 to 5 mana, which essentially gives your unit a blue buff worth of value without consuming an item slot. So it's literally giving your units like 4 items instead of 3. But some general tips for Yasuo is that he really enables hyper carries. He provides decent tempo, but not the best. And his boon is pretty good too. His only con is just no econ, but that might not matter if he helps you win streak or just have generic strong late game, just because you have essentially an extra combat augment. But next up we have is Sorka, the God of Stars, and Sorka gives HP and is pretty valuable if you are lose streaking. Otherwise, her offerings are pretty mediocre, and so is her boon. So in stages 2, 3, and 4, you can get gain 6 player HP. If at least 5 players choose this, gain 3 to 4 gold based on the stage. You could get 12 Tactician's health, or you can gain a Giant's Belt. Her HP can be pretty good, but the rest are pretty mediocre. In stage 3 and 4, you can also gain 12 Tactician health, but you can also get Blessing Size, which permanently increases a champion's health by 350 and size by 20%. The size can be pretty good on a 2-star 4 cost later on in the game. But if you compare it to the Yasuo ones, I'd rather have the Yasuo one, right? But something like this is going to be pretty good on something like Bastions, which gives you armor and magic resistance, because the health is just going to be more effective on those types of units. Soraka's stage 4/7 boon is going to be your units gain 2 HP per missing player HP. At the start of each player combat, gain 1 additional player HP. So at 20 player HP, you get 160 health, which makes this much worse than Varus's boon. So overall, this is pretty mediocre unless you make super value out of gaining the player HP, which at that late in the game, like how much health are you realistically going to get? If you die sometime in stage 5, you're only going to get that for just a few turns. So this boon, not that great. Sorka, not that great in my opinion, but she is useful if you need HP to survive longer if you take like the gain 12 life one. The Blessing can be pretty solid on a frontline 4 cost unit, but her boon, it's pretty much strictly worse than Varus in most scenarios. So I'm going to place her in the B tier for now. But pretty much she's going to be good for any comp where you need to buy time to stabilize, and that's when you're going to pick her. Next up we have is Ahri, the Goddess of Opulence. And Ahri gives gold, XP, or rerolls, so she is pretty much like the econ god of the set. These offerings provide a decent amount of money and are generally pretty good, and also her boon is a lot of combat value. So in stage 2, you could get either 6 gold, 8 XP, or gain 6 gold if at least 5 players choose this, gain an additional gold, or you can get something like 5 rerolls. So in stage 2, these are pretty much generic in value, and they don't really favor any composition except for the one that gives 5 rerolls. Helping a reroll comp stabilize with less gold investment is obviously going to be super high value. And also note, if you are playing something like 1 cost reroll, do not take the XP one, because it'll pretty much just ruin your shop odds. In stage 3, you can get 8 gold, 7 rerolls, gain 8 gold if at least 5 players choose this, gain an additional 2 gold, or gain 10 XP, so it's pretty much just an upgrade from the ones before. I'd say rerolls are by far the strongest in this stage, because 7 rerolls, that costs 14 gold. It's just the most gold value out of all of them, and you could pretty much just use them to stabilize. So many people roll on stage 3-5 anyways, so you could just take this and use them without having to spend any gold. But again, I would only really take Ahri here if the other gods are kind of useless. In stage 4, it's again an upgrade of all the other ones. You just get a little bit more of a bonus. So pretty much only click these if you're in need of money. And again, the rerolls offer the most value. Lastly, her boon on stage 4/7 is your team gains 2% attack damage and ability power per level, and you also gain 2 XP each round for the rest of the game. So similar to one of the rewards that was like gain 2 gold every single round for the rest of the game, this is really good if you're able to actually make it to the super late game. Otherwise, this is just pretty much a generic combat boon that provides 18 AP and AD on average, assuming you're level 9. So if you're playing reroll, it's slightly weaker, but obviously like the XP boost might help you get to level 9 and equal it out. But pretty much Ahri, unless the other gods' offerings are super weak, do not expect to get the extra value from the one that gives you extra gold when 5 or more people click Ahri, because apart from that, the small econ buffs are just not that great. They don't give you that much direction or immediate power in a lot of cases, apart from using the rerolls right away. Lastly, Ahri also does provide a very strong combat boon. However, the cons for Ahri is that she's not great for best in slot comps, just because she doesn't provide anything for that direction. So if you're really forced into a comp that needs like very specific items and things like that, Ahri might not be the best choice for you. Overall, I'm going to put her in the S tier though. I think she's just super strong. Econ is always super good, and her boon just provides a lot of good generic combat value. The last god we have up is Aurelion Sol, who is the god of wonders, and before going into Sol's offerings, we have to talk about the quests that he has. So more often than not, the easiest quest will be the most efficient one, but a lot of these rewards are kind of like delayed value and will be a bit better from a lose streak unless you can complete the quest immediately. Also, you should probably consider the trait quest if you are lose streaking, as you will have access to Reforgers. But one of his offerings is in stage 2, you get the wealth quest. When you reach 50 gold, gain a component anvil and 4 gold. It's delayed value, but pretty decent. If you got like a super gold econ augment at the start of the game, then yeah, this is going to be pretty easy to complete. So if you got hedge fund or whatever, then yeah, take this. Stage 3, you could get something called Starry Quest. The next time you start up a champion, gain 10 gold. If you have a lot of pairs, this is going to be good. Stage 2 and 3 can offer trait quests, which after fielding 6 non-unique traits in a player combat, gain a random emblem and a reforger. This one's pretty much trait tracker, but in a quest instead of an augment. So if you're lose streaking, you could prioritize a trait quest due to extra reforger. And a lot of times this is pretty easy to do because sometimes when you're lose streaking, you're just buying random stuff in your shop that doesn't really go deep into one direction. And you can kind of fill out this 6 trait requirement pretty easily, especially if you have some triple traders on your team. Next up we have in stage 4, we have level quests. When you reach level 9, gain 20 gold. Low health quest, the first time you fall below 30, gain 18 gold. And reroll quest, which is after rolling the shop 15 times, gain 2 component anvils. So take these if you're likely to complete them by 5-2 at the latest. It's pretty much going to be treated the same way we had the Ixtal from set 16, like only take the quest if you can complete it, guys. It's really not that hard. I know it's fun to go for like the super value by taking like a big quest, like 20 gold is pretty cool if you reach level 9. But if you're level 7, 0 gold, like you can't realistically unlock the level quest, can you, right? So don't take it in that case. If you're level 8, 50 gold, then yeah, take the leveling quest and you pretty much get it right away. But let's cover his boon. If you choose one of 3 quests, you can prove yourself to Aurelion Sol. And for 1 quest, you can grant your team 15 AP and AD. For 2 quests, you can get in 3-player combats, gain a completed item anvil and 22 gold. And for quest 3, in 8-player combats, you can gain +1 to all active traits. So pretty much the way to decide what to pick here is your HP. If you have 2 or less lives, default to quest 1 because you just need power right away. If you have 3 or more lives and need econ to go level 9, you can take quest 2. And in the very, very, very rare instance where you have like infinite lives, you can take quest 3 because 8-player combats is a really long time. You're going to be in the middle of stage 6 before you activate this, and who knows, by the time you get that, someone might have 3-star legendary and you lose anyways even though you took this, right? So generally you're going to stick to quest 1 or 2. But if you want to make a YouTube video, then I guess go for quest 3. So pretty much my tips for Sol is, again, make sure you always pick the easiest quest. Efficiency really matters more than max value. Trait quest is especially good when lose streaking due to getting a lot of reforgers. And then your stage 4 quests, you generally should be completing them by stage 5-2. If not, they're not worth taking. So Aurelion Sol's pros is getting above average value, and you also can get emblems. And his con is that they are going to be delayed, so you have to make sure you have enough HP or like board strength to kind of make up for that. But overall, I'm going to give Sol an A tier. He pretty much benefits any comp that benefits from the quest rewards. I know that's very simple to say, but honestly, the quest rewards are so diverse that you pretty much have to mix and match it in your game. Like getting items versus gold, like getting items is obviously going to be better if you're running multiple carries. Getting a lot of gold is obviously going to be nice if you're playing an expensive comp. But I will say that the trait quest is actually pretty strong in comps that just naturally activate many traits, because that way you can pretty much use any of the random emblems that you get. But that's pretty much how I'm going to be approaching gods in set 17. It honestly sounds more complicated than I'm making it. It's actually pretty simple. Just choose the reward that helps your board the most immediately, and ideally like the boon kind of lines up with your endgame goal. Whether they buff or nerf some of these in future times, it will not change the way we approach these. It's pretty much like an extra augment stage. You could kind of think of it that way, except it's a bit simpler. So if you did not watch the video or you played it on 5x speed and didn't understand anything I said, the summary is pick for your current board state. That's going to be the most important thing to do. But also think a little bit about the boon and how it kind of matches with your late game plan, and also know the general power levels of each of the boons, which I cover in the video. For example, if we had to compare Soraka and Varus, Varus's boon is just generically better than Soraka's. I'm not saying never take Soraka, but Varus's boon is just mathematically better. You know, like the number 5 is greater than the number 4. I don't make the rules for that, you know? But leave any questions you have down in the comments below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. But that's going to be it for me today. I got a lot more guides set up for set 17, so definitely look out for those on YouTube, Discord, Facebook. I started a Facebook and TikTok. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this, and I'll see you all next time.